Alright, this is 506 Dance, live at the ECMA Showcase Urban Electronic, and we have the Metro Housing Authority.
That's right. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Nice to meet you. So, tell us a little bit about you. Funny thing, you live in New York, and you're a Canadian living in New York City.
I'm a Canadian. I spend a lot of time in New York City. I'm actually back and forth quite a bit. I was living down there for the better part of 4 years. I just came back about 8-9 months ago, and I'm spending all my time on the East Coast of Canada because it's the most beautifulest place in the world. I love New York City. New York City is where my heart is at, but this is the place to live out here.
So tell us how you got started in music, and tell us a little about your style.
I got started in music probably about 13 years ago. Honestly, I gave up a career as a baseball player because my arm got torn up, and it's kind of like looking for the next thing to do, and music kind of found me. It was a couple of years before I actually got the confidence in me to get out on the scene and start like searching for gigs and whatnot, but it all kind of happened fairly quickly, and I found myself down in LA and going to New York and Toronto and Chicago, and lately the last couple of years I've been going down to Miami for the Winter Music Conference, which is one of the most amazing things in the world, and when you got like 20 or 30,000 people coming together in one of the most beautiful places in America, unfortunately. And honestly, it's you know, things have been good, but where I got my start really on the scene in Halifax.
All right, so tell us a little about your style, because you're the Metro Housing Authority. So tell us a little bit about that. Like,
Metro Housing Authority is basically, it was a creation of mine that I started about 8 years ago when I started to really get into production, and my production that I really want to be a part of is straight, legit, real underground house music. And so the name Metro Housing Authority just kind of fit, being the fact that we're from Halifax. Halifax has the legitimate Metro Housing Authority that looks after the public housing. It just kind of made sense. So make a long story short, you know, 9 years ago, started really getting into production, came up with the name, and just kind of evolved with it over time. And over the last 5 or so years, we've picked up a couple of other musicians that they perform with us. They also play in the studio to lace down individual parts to given tracks that we release, and from time to time we go out and actually perform those tracks. Other times I just DJ as Metro Housing Authority, as myself, and play those tracks basically.
So tell us about the things that you have released, and you know, tell a little bit of the public what you have done.
Over the last couple of years, I've got some releases on some fairly well-known like underground house music labels. One of them is called Lingo. It's out of Illinois, more or less, and basically it's just a legit house music label. A bunch of other cats like Chuck Love and Jason Hodges and Sonny Fodera. If people are into house music, they'll know those names. Those guys are on that label as well, and basically, you know, the opportunity to be on that label was one I couldn't pass up because it gave me a lot of, you know, street cred or whatever you want to call it in the game, because it's a really sought after label, but also it, you know, solidified my own confidence in the fact that I was making music that people wanted to put out. So, you know, other than that, I got a couple of releases coming out on Smoke City Music out of New York City. Another couple of releases coming out on Kinjo Music, which is a Canadian house music label out of Montreal, run by a great cat named Dave Allison, who's doing some unbelievable down-tempo mushroom jazz kind of stuff, but also some legit straight-up house music as well. So.
Awesome. So, a quick question. Now you've been all over the place. You've been in Miami. You've been to Los Angeles. You've been to New York. How is those are big markets for electronic music, and East Coast Canada is not as big of a market. So, how do you feel the scene is here compared to the States or those places that you've been previously to, New York or Los Angeles? Or
my honest view of it is, you know, with the exception of the major markets, the New York, the Chicago, the Toronto, the LA, and Miami, and a couple other a couple other cities in there that you throw in, for the most part, a lot of these scenes, whether you're in, you know, out in Nova Scotia or out in Atlantic, Canada, or you're in the middle of Portland, Oregon, or wherever, you know, there's these small, intimate little scenes, but the fact is the music is alive, and what I'm finding lately is, you know, the top 40 and pop music is taking over, and, you know, it's up to guys like myself and Donovan and a whole bunch of other cats out in the East to properly represent house music and really bring it back to the forefront, because it, you know, it was there 10, 12 years ago in the whole rave scene, but the whole rave scene was wrong. There was a lot of things going on there that weren't really above board, and really my goal is, it's not about clubs or any scene, it's about making real good music. If you make real good music, you make heat, you play heat, people will follow.
So, to know more about you, where do we go?
You can go to my SoundCloud page, which is SoundCloud/Metro Housing Authority. You can go to BigCityNights.ca, which is our production company in Halifax that we throw events from, and we also release some music from, and we do a lot of other stuff from that. And simultaneously, you can check me out on Lingo, lingorecordings.com. You can check me out on kinjomusic.ca. You can check me out on... I'm going to have to edit that out. Yeah. And Facebook, Metro Housing Authority.
There you have it, Metro Housing Authority in the house. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be a part of this. ECMA is what?